All right, question of the day. What is your favorite sandbox game? Now, there's not a ton of games in this genre, but, things like Xia, Western Legends, other games like that. I think even Firefly and maybe even Outer Rim can almost count as a sandbox game. But a game in which you can just do whatever you want to do and just enjoy the game like that. Because today we're talking about Captain's Log. This is a sandbox game all about not piracy necessarily, but you can be pirates, and there are pirates. Kind of the early 1800s, late 1700s in the Caribbean, right? Also, I want to give a shout out to my man Cody Rhodes. Finish the story. Let's go. But let me know in the comments below what your favorite sandbox game is as we take a look at Captain's Log right now. Hey, before you go any further, make sure to check out the Dice Tower merch store. We have the space shirt, and we are slinging. That has been our best seller of all time. Now, we're planning on using some of the art, more of the art from this year, in more merch and more ideas. So let me know what you have for comments, but go to the Dice Tower store right now and buy some great new 2024 Dice Tower space shirt right now. All right, this is a Captain's Log set up for two. Now, you can't see the whole thing yet, so I'll pan the camera around a little bit. Got a nice dice tower over there. You got some dice here, some ship miniatures, as well as some collars to put on them to show which country they belong to, etc. You also have a shipboard, which I'm going to pick up and show you here because I don't have anything on it yet. Now, you're going to put things on here. Obviously, this is the side A. This is what it recommends you use first because it has pre-printed upgrades on it and pre-printed ships, so it's a lot easier to get into the game. These spaces here are going to be blocked by this piece right here. It's going to block what you have available to you until you upgrade your ships, etc. So you're going to move this along and get more. Now, a lot of information is on here. In case in point, you can hold a certain amount of goods in your ship, but when you do, you're going to weigh it down. And as you weigh it down further, based on the amount of weight you have, you can't get over certain sandbars when you move. Other things on here would be your upgrades, your amount of cannons, all that sort of stuff. The upgrade level is based on the amount of sails you see. So 1, 2, 3 here. And then there are no 4s on here, I don't believe. But there is a level 4 in the game when it comes to certain things. Now, this is the standard mode. There's an expert mode, which comes with fishing and ramming and boarding other people's ships. But essentially, this is a sandbox game. Not necessarily a piracy, but the high seas of the Caribbean. Now, you can choose to act like a pirate. You can fight other pirates. You can do all sorts of things. You'll notice those barrel spaces out there. If you go on those, you can explore and find barrels. And these barrel tokens here will be floating, and you'll get the benefits of those. You can explore these uninhabited or unexplored terrains as well. The only thing is you have to be able to draw a line of sight between the middle of your tile that you're on, and notice the shape. They're kind of these goat head shapes here. From the middle of that tile to the middle of the one you're exploring unobstructed, so you couldn't explore this one to that one if you're right here because of the island there. You'll notice different symbols. So this native town here, that's a native town. None of the ones that are on the board currently are owned by any of the countries. You have a country board over here with a market. Yes, there's a full-blown market gimmick. Gimmick, is that the word? No. But there's a full-blown market board over here which includes different countries and goods. So each country sells a different type of goods. You've got sugar and silver and tea and one more. I can't think of the name of it right now. But you also have the contraband version of this, which means that currently England sells this. I think it's cotton, maybe. Whatever. Anyway, England sells this. Holland and all those sell that. But the contraband version, you will go based on the one below it. So if you were in this country and you wanted to buy contraband pink, you could buy it by being here and you'd buy above it. If you wanted to buy the contraband cotton here, you'd have to be in this country and you'd buy the contraband version. You're buying the one above it in the contraband. You can also sell it, and the market board tells you how much things sell for and how much you can buy them for. Interesting thing about buying versus selling is when you buy, you have to pay the price per good, depending on the column. When you sell, you mark which one the very farthest one is, and then you sell them all for that amount. So technically, it's a better good. Now, what's weird about this game, there are no half coins or 5,000 coins. Everything's measurements of 1,000. So even if something sells for 1,500, you have to round to the most unbeneficial way for you. Now, what you're going to be doing in your turn is you're going to be doing a move and an action then a move, or an action and an action. Those different actions are all sorts of things that you can do, such as exploring, which would be what we talked about a minute ago. You can interact with different things. And when you can interact with a mooring, which is the anchor right there, which is that port. And when you're in the moor, you have a better defense and stuff like that. You can be in a port. And when you're in the port, you can buy from the shipyard and the market, as we saw. You can go to the tavern, you can acquire missions and officers and crew and fame and all that sort of stuff from being in a tavern, which you'll see the little cup symbols of tavern. Mission cards are certain things that will be activated based on where you are and what you do. I'm sorry, that's not the mission card. But anyway, you'll get mission cards and activate them based on that. Now, the weird little wrinkle is once you've taken your turn, you control an NPC. And the NPC could be one of the schooners. It could be a privateer. It could be more aggressive. It could be more defensive. It could be a merchant ship. And they all act differently based on the NPC ship card that you're going to get handed to you at the end of your turn, and you will reveal it and show what you're supposed to do. Now, your ships here, level 1s, have certain amounts of information, 2s, 3s. You're just going to be going around collecting fame points from all sorts of different ways. There are a lot of ways to collect fame points. You can cash in 3 barrels for a fame point. You can sink another player's ship or an NPC ship for a fame point. You can sell 4 of the same type of good for a fame point. There's just a lot of different ways to get fame points, but that's what makes it a sandbox game. Now, again, this is a brief overview because you're going to be moving around, exploring, finding things. There are events that will happen based on the timer tracker here. Maybe a kraken will pop up, a whale will pop up, something like that, and the events will tell you what to do. Also, your enmity with other countries affects what you can do. Case in point, there may be a fort out there, and if you have a bad reputation based on that reputation board up there, you might get fired at by the fort, or the country that owns that NPC ship may start gunning for you because you have a bad reputation. You can have a good reputation with them as well. Another thing is, if you sink a ship that a country is at war with, the country you sink you'll lower in reputation, but the country against them in war, based on that war card over there, will raise your reputation. So all sorts of stuff. There are missions here that are open and closed eyes, which means some of them are public, some of them are private. So this is a public rescue mission. You need to be at space 22, anchored at 22, and then you're going to roll a die, and based on the result, you're going to get these information here. And if you get it, you'll get the reward. And there's all sorts of missions. Transport, some of them are open, some of them are closed. Transports, there's a whole lot of transport. But there's all sorts of types of missions you can do. You're playing for a set amount of fame points, and really you can set it as much as you want. And kind of like a train game, at certain point values, older ships are going to rotate out of the NPC deck, which means the ships you're going to be encountering are going to be a lot stronger. When you fight, you're going to add up all your cannons, you're going to fire those, and you're going to do damage. Now, the way damage works is pretty interesting on the ship. Your cargo spaces will start to get filled with, if it's water damage, they'll fill with water. And water starts from right to left, up to bottom to top. Fire damage starts from top to bottom, left to right. And once all of these are filled with damage, your ship sinks. Now, it can respawn, but interesting about fire, if you have 3 fire cubes already, it expands and gives you another fire cube, so it continues to go out. Now, you can repair your ship at the shipyard as well as by the upgrades by using wood. Now, wood is a resource you're going to need to hold in your boat, but once you spend 1 wood, you can repair up to 2 damages. So that's the general gist of the game. Again, the expert mode includes a whole lot of other stuff, but this is how you play roughly. You're going to be going around buying and selling goods, taking missions, fighting other ships. And one other interesting thing is the movement. Now, the movement is based on the amount of spaces you can go, but also moving forward based on the facing of your ship into the front 3 spaces causes 0 negative benefit. If you try to turn hard, you're going to have to take a -1 to your movement. So currently it's 8, that would be a 7. If you're moving straight backwards or you're turning around, you can lose a -2. But there's also a wind card, and the wind card shows based on which direction you're facing if there's a negativity due to the wind. So whole lot of really thematic stuff that goes on in this game, but you'll play to a certain set of victory points. The person with the most points wins the game. That is a captain's log. Let's get on to the review. All right, so Captain's Log. This is a sandbox game in which you can do pretty much anything you can think of, right? First of all, as you know, we have a rubric here that we go through when it comes to ranking the game. So we do concept, board layout. That's kind of the whole look of the game, not art. Mechanics, art direction, art, gameplay, and rulebook. Then we aggregate those scores together and give you a final average score. So starting with concept, it's a 9 for me. I love this era. I love the whole piracy and high seas in the Caribbean. I mean, we all love Johnny Depp's movie, you know, and Orlando Bloom and all that. So it's really cool to see a game set there, and it really takes the flavor of that really, really well, from the exploring to the shipping to the stopping at different ports. Now, The board layout's an 8.5. Now, this probably should be an 8 for me, only because once you start flipping over tiles, you realize how few and far between those islands actually are, and sometimes it's a pain to have to get from here to here based on the random setup, but then again, you can move pretty far on your turn. Now, the mechanics are a 7.5. Now, this one's tricky for me because it could have actually been a little bit lower, but also could be a little bit higher, and that all depends on the game group you're playing with, because it is Sandbox, but there's some knacky rules, like, and we'll get to it when we get to the rule book in the end. It's not 100% clear what you do with a 2-player game versus a 4-player game when it comes to your ship and the NPCs and all that. So mechanics are interesting, though. There's a lot of things you can do. You can go and buy. There's a whole market and all that sort of stuff. And it works like a market game. The market is a little tricky when it comes to contraband versus regular goods and all that, but there is a lot of stuff you can do. And on the B side, there's even way more stuff you can do, from whaling and stuff like that. So, mechanics are 7.5. Art direction's an 8. Actually, the symbols are pretty good. Now, there are some you're going to have to look up, and some that don't make sense even when you look them up. Like the X on the flag, when you don't have a nation to reference off of, what does that mean exactly? So a couple things like that. So art direction's an 8. Art is an 8.5. The game looks really good. Like, I like the way this game looks. The cards look good, especially the different pirates, the historical pirates, and Bonnie and all that's in there. So you got a lot of really good stuff there when it comes to the art. The shipboard looks nice. The components are nice. That whole goods tower in the expert game is really, really nice. So I really like that. And I don't ding it for having wooden cubes because the boards are recessed. And if you have recessed boards, wooden cubes are totally fine with me. If it wasn't recessed, I would definitely want something a little nicer. But gameplay's a 7. Now, here's why. It gets bogged down in its complexities, even in the standard game. Now, I know it's a sandbox game, so it's supposed to have a lot of rules, but sometimes they get in the way of each other, especially having to control the NPCs. I get it. It seeds the board, makes it where even playing at any player count, you have stuff to deal with and play with. I get that, but it gets a little bit, it's too much at times. So rulebook is a 6. Now, this is a caveat. I know there's supposedly a fixed version of this, but the rulebook that I have in my box, it's not terrible, but it doesn't give you all the information you need, and you need to flip between the expert and the regular just to play the standard game, which is kind of a pain. So a 6 for the rulebook. So overall, that gives it an 8. Once rounded, you can actually do the math and see that I rounded 7.8 up to an 8. Which it's a solid score. It's brought down by its unwieldiness sometimes when it comes to the mechanics, but also it's brought up by the concept and the art and all those things like that, and the things you can do in the sandbox of the game. So that is Captain's Log, a solid 8. I'm Brian Drake here on the Dice Tower. Make sure to follow me on X and Instagram at Dice Tower Brian. Until next time, we'll see you.